Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're diving into this really cool thought experiment that kicks off with a simple idea, but trust me, ends with some absolutely staggering numbers. It all started when someone asked an AI a really simple but kind of loaded question.
And this is that question. What if the wealthiest people in America paid taxes at the same overall rate as, I don't know, your average person in Texas? Seems pretty straightforward, right? But to even begin to answer that, we first got to figure out what an average person in Texas actually pays.
All right, so let's get into it. Before we start talking about tax rates for billionaires, we have to set our baseline. We need to know what an average Texan is really paying. And, it's a little more complicated than you might think.
See, to get the real picture, you have to look at more than just income tax. Yeah, it's true. Texas is famous for not having a state income tax, but that's not the end of the story, not by a long shot. People in Texas still pay federal income tax, of course. Then you've got your state and local sales taxes, property taxes, plus payroll taxes for things like Social Security and Medicare.
So when you add all of those different pieces together, you get this number, 22%. That's the total effective tax rate. This is the magic number for our whole thought experiment. So burn it into your brain, 22%, because that's what we're going to apply to the wealthiest Americans.
Okay, so we've got our baseline, 22%. Now for the main event. We're going to take that rate and apply it to the wealth of America's billionaires. And just a heads up, this is where the numbers start getting, well, pretty wild.
First things first, let's just wrap our heads around the scale we're talking about here. This whole experiment, it's focused on about 800 people, just 800 individuals in the entire US. But together, this tiny group holds over $6 trillion in wealth. That's the pie we're looking at.
But it's not just about the money they already have. It's about how quickly that pile of money is growing. According to the AI's estimate, the wealth of US billionaires grows by more than $733 billion every single year. So for our first scenario, we're not even going to touch their existing fortunes. We're just going to look at that annual growth.
So, here we go. Scenario 1. And this is the most conservative one. What happens if we just take that 22% tax rate and apply it only to the new wealth these billionaires generate each year? And the answer? An extra $161.4 billion in tax revenue every single year. I mean, think about that. That's money that, right now, under our current system, the government just doesn't collect. Why? Because that growth in wealth isn't technically considered income in the way we usually think about it.
But even the AI knew this wasn't so simple. As it was crunching the numbers, it threw in a big old reality check. It said that actually doing this would be, and I quote, politically and legally non-trivial, which, let's be honest, is a massive understatement, as we're about to find out.
Okay, so let's push this even further. Let's get a little more radical. What if we didn't just tax the new money they make each year? What if, just as a one-time thing, we applied that same 22% rate to the entire $6.22 trillion they already have?
The difference is just, whoa. The number explodes from $161 billion to $1.37 trillion. This would be a one-time wealth tax, and that's a whole different ballgame. We're talking about a world where your net worth itself, not just your income, could be taxed.
Okay, let's just hit pause for a second and line these up. Scenario 1, tax the yearly gains. You get about $161 billion a year. Scenario 2, a one-time tax on all their wealth. That's a massive $1.37 trillion. And there was even a third super conservative scenario that only used the state and local part of the tax rate, and even that brought in over $57 billion a year. No matter how you slice it, the potential revenue is just huge.
So that's got to make you wonder, right? If the numbers are this big, why aren't we doing this? Why don't billionaires pay taxes like this already? Well, to understand why, you have to understand one really, really important distinction that is like the foundation of our entire tax system.
This right here, this is the whole thing in a nutshell. On one side, you've got realized income. Think of it like your paycheck or the cash you get when you sell some stock. It's real money in your pocket. That's what our tax system is designed to tax. But on the other side, you have unrealized gains. This is the tricky part. It's the increase in value of your assets, like your stock portfolio, before you actually sell them. The value is there on paper, but it's not cash yet. For most billionaires, this is where the magic happens. It's how their wealth explodes, and it can go completely untaxed, year after year.
And because our system is built that way, it creates all these massive hurdles. I mean, to tax those unrealized gains, you'd have to basically rewrite American tax law from the ground up. Then you've got the risk of capital flight. What if billionaires just move their money, or even themselves, to other countries? And how do you even value this stuff? It's easy with public stock, but what about a priceless piece of art or a private company? The arguments would be endless. And the biggest hurdle of all? There are some serious constitutional questions about whether a direct tax on wealth is even allowed in the first place.
Okay, so those challenges are definitely real, no question. But for the last part of this, let's just put the how aside for a second and go back to the what if. Let's make these abstract billions and trillions feel a little more real. What could we actually buy with all this potential new revenue?
This really puts it all into perspective. Just take our most conservative number, that $161.4 billion a year from taxing the annual gains. That single amount is more than the entire yearly budget for NASA. It's also more than the entire budget for the Department of Education. In fact, you could fund both of them and still have billions of dollars left over.
And what about that absolutely massive number from the one-time wealth tax, that $1.37 trillion? Well, that one chunk of money could fund the entire Social Security program, one of the biggest things the government spends money on for almost a whole year. I mean, the scale of that is just, it's almost hard to get your head around.
So, this whole thing started with just a simple question. And yeah, making it happen would be anything but simple. But the math is pretty clear. If you tax billionaire wealth at the same rate as an average person, you generate a truly transformative amount of money. The numbers show what's possible. So the real question we're left with is, will the political will ever be there to match it?